Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Steve Rothberg, and he is the founder of College Recruiter. Welcome, Steve.
Gary, awesome to be with you today.
So, Steve, tell us, what is College Recruiter, and how did you get started?
Yeah, so College Recruiter, the best way of describing it is a job search site. So think Indeed or ZipRecruiter or LinkedIn. Employers pay to advertise their job openings. But what makes us different than a lot of other job search sites like that probably a lot of your listeners will be familiar with, is that they are what are called general sites. They have jobs for candidates of all different sizes and shapes, any kind of occupational field, any level of experience. College Recruiter focuses on a particular niche, 0 to 5 years of experience. Typically, people with at least some post-secondary education, might be college, might be university, might be military service, boot camps, certification programs, et cetera. And I founded the company out of which College Recruiter grew. That's just 33 years ago now, which is weird because I'm only 24 years old,
There you go.
or at least like to think of myself that way. But I founded a company way back in 91. It had nothing to do with the internet. I didn't even know that the internet existed in 91. We were publishing maps of college and university campuses and selling the advertising around the borders. We gave the maps for free to the schools. The schools gave them free to the incoming students, the freshmen.
Right.
And we were looking to diversify because those maps came out basically like August, September, the start of the school year. And then kind of sat around twiddling my thumbs the rest of the year. So what else do students need? Well, we didn't want to come up with another product that would cannibalize the sales that would hit the freshmen. So we looked at sort of the other end, the students who were graduating, the seniors. What do they need? More than anything else, they need jobs. So we created an employment magazine that was called College Recruiter, physical magazine distributed through the career service offices at a couple hundred schools. And then in the mid-90s, this thing called the internet came along. And we added a website that would just be the sizzle that would help sell the steak. It was kind of fun to go to an employer and say, hey, if you run this ad in the magazine, it'll also be on the internet. Right. And then within a couple of years, by 98, we could absolutely see that the internet was not a fad. And that's where the future of the business was going to be. And so we started to shut down the print publications. They were profitable. Actually, all of the profits for the business were coming from the print. But the internet side, the job search side, that was clearly where the future of the business was. And the more that we held on to the print publications, the worse it was going to be for us long term. Right. So we've kind of bit the bullet and made the shift. And it was risky, but thankfully it worked.
Right. So can you tell us about, a lot of business owners, when it comes to recruiting their talent, there's many different places to go from, like you're saying, like your guys' site and the other ones like that. But then there's headhunters and there's other things like that are out there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, no sweat. So College Recruiter is a small business. In terms of like W-2 type employees, we have about 15 people. We also have contractors. So I think a lot of your listeners have businesses that are comparable in size to ours. It's really different if you're an Amazon with literally hundreds of thousands of employees that you're hiring every year. Forget about how many people they have. They're hiring hundreds of thousands of people versus a business with 5 employees that maybe you only hire 1 or 2 people a year. The number one source of hire, the number one way that businesses hire is through referrals. You know somebody, or you know somebody who knows somebody. And I'm not talking about my wife's family that has like sort of Chicago mob ties to it, way back in like the 30s and 40s. Not that kind of person that I know somebody
Right.
who knows somebody, but you might have like a cousin whose best friend is looking for the kind of job that you have open. So that's the most popular. Another common way of hiring somebody is to use what a lot of people would call an executive recruiter, a headhunter,
Mhm.
an agency. Those people typically are paid, or those organizations are typically paid a percentage of the first year compensation. And a normal percentage would be 25%. It can be 30, it can be 35, it can be 15. Sometimes it's a flat fee. Like years ago, we used one that charged, I think it was $3, $4, $5,000 or something for helping us hire a couple of administrative people. But generally it's about 25%. So, if you're paying somebody 100 grand, maybe they're a salesperson, and you hire the person that was referred to you by that agency, and maybe they're with you for a month or 3 months or something like that, then you pay that agency $25,000. Now, sounds like a lot, but they tend to produce much higher quality hires that tend to stay with you and have a really great positive impact on your business. So if you can afford them, that's a really good way of going. That said, the vast majority of roles that companies hire for, you don't have to pay that kind of money. If you're looking for an executive or a key employee, that's a good avenue. But if you're just looking for kind of like your normal run of the mill, I need another set of hands, we're opening up another restaurant, I need to hire 12 people to staff it,
Right.
then now you're getting into the world that we live in, which is job boards. Some people call them recruitment marketplaces.
Okay.
And that is generally an advertising model. So think if you placed a help wanted ad in the Sunday newspaper, you might pay, a couple $100 for that ad to run. That's the normal cost for a job board, is a couple $100 to run an ad for 30 days. That's called a traditional duration-based pricing model. In other words, you're paying for that ad to run a specific period of time.
Right.
No candidate might see it. A million candidates might see it. No candidate might apply. Hundreds of candidates might apply, but you get what you get.
Right.
It's the risk of the ad not working well is all on the employer. But you pay that job board whether or not it works, whether it works really poorly or really well. You pay the same fee. And that's annoying to a lot of small business people, because they want to make sure that when they shell out a couple $100, that they're going to get some value for it.
Right.
A lot of job boards, including the one that I founded, College Recruiter, have moved to a cost per click model, or even a cost per application. And what that means is when the candidate sees the job ad, first of all, the employer pays nothing unless the ad works. So how do you measure if it works? When the candidate sees the ad and clicks on the apply button, then the employer pays for that click. Usually the candidate's going to go to the employer's website, but not always. The job board, the candidate might apply on the job board.
Mhm.
A normal cost per click is somewhere between 50 cents and $1.50. The average probably being right around $1. It varies the kind of role, the geography, etc. But $1 per click is pretty normal. There are a small number of job search sites that are charging per application. Last fall of 2023, Indeed tried to roll that out. Didn't go well. It's going to come back, and they'll do it better, and they'll do it well. Mark my words. It might be 6 months from now. It might be 6 years from now. My crystal ball is a little fuzzy on the timeline, but they will. And cost per application means that when the candidate sees the ad, clicks the apply button, and completes the application form, then you pay. And that, again, varies role to role geographically, but $25 to $35 an application is normal. Now, an employer might say, well, why would I want to pay $25 an application instead of $1 per click? And the reason is clicks don't get you applications.
Right.
And without applications, you can't interview somebody. And if you don't interview somebody, you're probably not going to hire them. So it gets you kind of closer to the point of hire. It's less risky for the employer.
With the application method
Yeah.
that there is, so I know when I've posted jobs in the past, I've had people that have applied,
Yep.
and they aren't anywhere close to being qualified. You know, like we
100%.
have you need to have whatever 3 to 5 years of experience, and they have
Yep.
absolutely no experience, but they apply. That's a
Yeah.
frustration if you're paying for an application.
Extreme frustration is putting it mildly, Gary.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there, in that, does College Recruiter, do you guys help people? Do you have another service that helps people, I guess, write their ads, or, you guys help them, hey, look, your ad looks really nice, but you should put
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z in there. Do you guys have a service that helps with that?
We don't, but we know people who do, and we're
Okay.
happy to refer, customers who need that help to them. One thing, it might be helpful to the listener to kind of like back up a half a step. And I'm sure you do this with your
You can
clients all
back
the
up a
time.
full step. It's okay.
Well, if I backed up a full step, given how clumsy I am, then at least I would get hurt, maybe you too.
Right.
But it's good to manage expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So the reality is, when you advertise anything, an employment opportunity, a product, a service, the majority of the people that see that ad and even respond to that ad are not qualified.
Right.
So if you've got a restaurant and you put an ad in the newspaper, most people who see that ad are never going to come to your restaurant. Some of the people who see that ad might call you up and ask what your hours are. That's kind of a lead, but if they don't come in and spend money with you, I regard that as being more of an expense than anything else, because they're sucking up staff time.
Sure.
It's kind of the same with a lot of retailers. If you're in like a downtown and people walk by your shop and they're looking in the window, those aren't customers. You might be able to get them to be a lead. Maybe they come into your shop, they try on a bunch of clothes, they don't buy anything, they leave. That's kind of like what happens with job applicants. So employers right away should understand that literally most of the applications they're going to receive are not going to be well qualified, no matter where they advertise. So, what's the expression? Perfection is the enemy of progress. So you want to progress to hire, but if you expect that all your applicants are going to be well qualified, then your expectations are just unreasonable. So right away, understand that most are not. Probably, like most things in life, it's an 80-20 rule. If 20% of your applicants are good, you're doing well.
I was just going to say that's a good turnout.
Yeah. So like when employers complain, most of the applicants are not well qualified, no matter what the source is. It's like, okay, good. And it's Tuesday, so tell me something else I don't know.
Right.
It's what you should expect. You always want a higher quality, a higher percentage to be well qualified, a lower percentage to be unqualified. And a lot of that comes down to how you write the job ad. So candidates that are hiring, that are looking for relatively early career roles that where they don't require a lot of experience. The dirty, dark secret of the employment world is that they actually tend to look at only 3 things before they apply.
Okay.
Number 1, they look at the job title. Do not write your job title using crazy internal jargon. Like, I see ads that are SD Roman numeral 2. That's the job title. Software developer second level is what that. So software developer, I think most of us understand what that means.
Right.
Level 2 is internal jargon. That only means something if you're already working for the company. These people aren't working for the company. That's why you're advertising. So never write a job title like that. Even if you call that internally, just say something like mid-level software developer. experienced software developer, or entry-level software developer, something like that, that the
Mhm.
candidate will understand. The second thing that they look at is your location.
Okay.
Most employers do a pretty good job with that. City, state, zip code, that kind of thing. If it's a fully remote position, say so. If it's hybrid, say so. That's easy. The third thing is the biggest problem for most employers to share in a job posting ad, and that's compensation. A lot of employers think that if they do not tell the candidate up front what the salary range is, that gives the employer a negotiating advantage. What that says to me is that the employer is very interested in wage theft. They want to underpay the people they're hiring. There's no good reason otherwise to hide that information. You as the employer should be able to say to somebody, hey, Gary, I'm going to extend an offer to you. This job I advertise for between $50,000 and $60,000 a year. Based upon your experience, based upon your education, you're a little bit below average in terms of where I would think, and it's for reasons X, Y, and Z. So what I want to do is start you at 53, and in 6 months, we're going to reevaluate. And if you're doing A, B, and C by that time, then I'm going to give you a raise to $56,000. Like, most candidates are like, cool, I get it. No problem. And let them come back and say, oh, well, wait a second. Yeah, I only have 2 years of experience, and your ad said that you really want somebody with 2 to 4. So I'm kind of at the lower end of that. But my 2 years of experience, I was leading a platoon in combat. So don't tell me that I don't have great managerial experience. I do. I was literally saving the lives of my fellow work people. That's a little bit different than, like selling ice cream.
Right.
So let them come back and it's like, yeah, okay, you're right. You do have better experience than I was thinking. How about if we start you at 55, reevaluate in 6 months, and if you're doing A, B, and C, then we'll move you to 57. Right. And that's the kind of negotiation that every employer should have. So candidates look at those three things: job title, location, compensation, and they apply to the vast majority of roles.
Right.
When the employer gets back to them, you got to do it quickly. You got to get back to candidates within 1 to 2 days.
Okay.
If you do, then the candidate at that point is likely to look at who you are, what the role is, what the benefits are, the actual job description. That's where you see candidates dropping out of the process. So when employers complain about candidates ghosting them, it's usually for that reason, because the candidate for the first time is actually looking at who you are, what you do, what your work environment is going to be. And that comes into the, have you written a compelling job posting ad? Because the candidate will go back to the ad to read that. They're going to go to your website. They're going to look at reviews on Yelp, on Google. And if you've earned a bad reputation, then don't be surprised if the candidates just don't even bother talking to you. But if you've got a good reputation, shout it from the mountaintop.
Yeah, I think that you know everybody talks about the Google reviews, the Yelp reviews, and everything
Mhm.
else, just more along the lines of getting business. And I
Yeah,
think a lot of people look at it that, okay, hey, as a potential employee of the business, I'm going to go out and look at those things also to see what kind of feedback I can get from you. Because if it's something where a customer or a client says you're very argumentative, then as an employee, it's like, hey, what do you think this guy's going to be with you?
right.
So
Well, they
that's
might they might say something like, "It's not an argument, it's contradiction," and then you'd know they're a Monty Python fan, and then for sure you'd want to hire them. But
right.
but no, you're absolutely right, Gary. The Yelp reviews, the Google reviews, what people are talking about on Facebook, whatever, that influences customers. Do I want to come to your shop or not? Do I want to order your food or not? But it also influences your employees, your
Right.
potential employees. And so, I don't think that most employees need to be pampered or even want it, but we all want to be treated fairly.
Mhm.
And if you're treating your employees fairly, then they're likely to review you well. And then that's going to help you with your hiring of future employees. But if you treat people like crap and you pay
Right.
them like crap, then the employees who are willing to work for you are probably going to be crap.
Right. Right. Um, where do you see, I mean, you brought up a lot of great points, I think, with this. What are some other mistakes, common mistakes that you see the small business owner making when it
Mm,
comes to the recruiting?
yeah. I think one of the things that we learned years ago, we're what's called an EOS shop, Entrepreneurs Operating System, popularized in this book by Gino Wickman, called Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business. Um, it's fantastic for small businesses in so many ways. No, I don't get a commission. I wish I did. But one of the things that EOS teaches in terms of hiring is that every employee, those who are working for you, maybe they worked for you for 10 years, also those who you're thinking about hiring, you should do what EOS calls GWC them. In other words, I'm going to look at you, Gary, as a potential hire. Do you get it? Do you kind of understand what the job is about? Do you want it? Do you have a desire to do that job? And then the third one is the C, is the capacity. Do you have the skill set? Um, if you're a if you're a hair salon and you're hiring a hairstylist, part of that capacity is, are they licensed?
Right.
But if it's a sales position, probably there's no licensure required. But do they have a demonstrated track record of being able to successfully sell products or services like yours? So GWC everybody. It's amazing to me. I'm not good at hiring people, which is kind of weird because I founded a job board.
Right.
But I am literally not involved at all in the hiring of new employees because I'm terrible at it. I don't like it. So I get it. I kind of know what I should do, but I don't want it and I don't have the capacity to do it. So when you GWC me on that, I fail two out of the three things. So when
Right.
you're hiring somebody, you want them to have all three. If they don't, if you can't, if they don't have the G and the W and the C, don't hire them. You're better off leaving that seat unfilled than to fill it with somebody who's going to quit or be fired, 3 weeks from now or 3 months from now. It's for a lot of small businesses, we tend to get anxious, catastrophize. What happens if we don't hire this?
Right.
Cindy just quit. She's my accountant. If I can't replace Cindy, how am I going to get my invoices out? Well, okay, first of all, they can call you.
Right.
And I'm sure you're more than happy to help. Um, but probably you can find another Cindy by waiting a few days, even if it's a few weeks. So is it disruptive? Is it inconvenient? Absolutely. But man, if you hire somebody who's wrong, it costs you way more than just waiting a few weeks.
Yeah, I really think that with that, Stephen, that what a lot of people don't, and I try to tell people this, it's like, if you have to outsource temporarily
Yeah.
until you have the time to make sure you get that right person in there, because I think what you just said is very powerful because of the fact that it's like, okay, Cindy, your accountant isn't there anymore. And then now what am I going to do? It's like, okay, you bring somebody like me in that, yes, it's going to cost you, but you're bringing them in now for, whatever that period of time is that allows you to find that right person. And then I mean, I've had companies that have bookkeepers that we do tax work for. And what we've done, they've actually, when they lost their bookkeeper, we did come in and we
Mhm.
filled that position temporarily while they interviewed. And then when they got to the point where they thought they were ready to hire somebody, they asked me to sit in on the interview. So
Right.
looking at your external team that you have is something else that can really help you with this. Because I think, what you're saying is so important. And I know that I've had it where there's times where it's just like, it just seems like it's a constant turnover of people. And it's like, okay, because you're rushing to hire somebody, you're making mistakes and you're looking at, oh, well, yeah, I can put up with that. Oh, I can put up with that. And it's like, reality is you can, but you're saying that because you're afraid to not have somebody in that position.
And I'm so glad that you connected those dots of high turnover with bad hiring. My
Yeah.
words, not yours, but I think you would agree
Yeah.
that that's
Oh,
exactly
yeah.
what you're thinking.
Yep.
It is one of my kids years ago worked for a local Dairy Queen shop. Okay. He was there for 7 months and then quit when I think he was on his third manager in 7 months. So
Right.
2 in fast food in 7 months would be kind of normal. 3, that's a lot.
Right.
But after he quit and he had another better job to go to, better working conditions, better hours, better pay, like it all kind of lined up. He told me that the average length of time that somebody worked in that Dairy Queen was 3 months.
Wow.
Okay. So that says to me that the owner of that particular Dairy Queen did not care about their employees, that they were just putting butts into seats and probably blamed the employees for being bad people. Like,
Right.
I can't, nobody wants to work anymore. There aren't any good people out there. Like, that's not true. They might not want to work for you
Right.
and they might not do good work for you, but that comes back to the GWC. And you really have to understand what that person is going to do and pay them and treat them fairly. It is hard, quite frankly, as a bit of a tangent. It is really hard, especially for small businesses, to know what fair is. I hear that
Right.
all the time. It's like, yes, I want to pay people fairly. I don't know what fair is.
Right.
Okay. Go to Indeed,
Yep.
go to ZipRecruiter, go to a lot of job search sites and run some searches for the kind of position that you're hiring for. And look at what employers are paying. There are sites like Zippia, Zippia, salary.com. What is fair in St. Louis is really different than what's fair in New York, is really different than what's fair in Minot. So geography really matters. As does the years of experience in the position, the other kinds of qualifications. So a retail sales associate at a Target is going to be paid very differently than at a Tiffany's.
Right.
And so you kind of have to take that into account, but at least have a look at the range. I hear employers complaining that just a few years ago, they would have hired somebody for, say, $9 an hour, and they're paying 20% more than they were just a few years ago. So call it $11 an hour,
Right.
and they can't hire anybody. Well, think about it in terms of the candidate who you might be trying to attract. If that person can go 2 miles away and be working for $18 an hour, doesn't it make sense that they should be making $18 an hour? That's your competitor. Even if you're running a fast food restaurant and it's a retailer a couple miles away, different industry, but that's your competitor for talent. And I think that's one of the things that changed in COVID is that people stopped identifying themselves as being a fast food worker. And instead they started to identify themselves as being a cashier,
Right.
or just an hourly worker. I can do all sorts of things. I can move boxes for Amazon. I can flip burgers. I can drive a car, whatever. If I can make $18 an hour and put food on the table and maybe live in a bit of a nicer place than at $11 an hour, of course I should do that.
Right.
And I think not enough employers appreciate that it's a double, what's it called? Two-way street, I think
Yeah.
is the analogy, right?
Yeah.
Like it has
Yeah.
to work for you. It has to work for them too.
And I think it's, because during COVID, when a lot of people were laid off, we're right outside of, DC and Baltimore.
Yeah.
So people that were laid off that were looking for jobs here, we talked to them, and they were expecting to receive the same wages that they were getting when they were in DC or Baltimore.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, and like you're saying, it depends on the geographical area. And yes, living in the city costs more and so forth. So, outside where you don't have that hour commute anymore, you have a 10-minute commute, you have to expect less. So I think sometimes as employers, yes, we need to look at what's fair from a compensating people, but we also have to look at what's fair for us, because if our area, our geographical area is paying whatever it is, $20 an hour to somebody, or, a salary of 50, then that's what we need to keep it at. And going and paying somebody 80 because you feel like you have to have a body in there isn't good, because I think you're going to be overcritical of what that person's doing also. I've seen that before.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, Gary, is that when you hire, and this is definitely a mistake that I made early on, and part of the reason why I don't hire anymore, is that when you hire somebody hoping that they're going to be at a much higher level, it's unfair to then hold them to that.
Right.
When we inflate people's job titles, it's like, oh, Cindy's a customer service representative. I don't really want to pay her a lot more money, but if I call her a customer service manager or a customer service director, then A, I can get away with not paying her as much, but B, she should be doing better work for us, because a customer service director should deliver more value than a customer service representative. Okay, that makes sense. GWC her. Does Cindy get it, want it, have the capacity to do that director level job? Have you provided her with the training that she needs?
That's a big piece. Yeah.
Yeah, is maybe mentorship. Maybe there are classes that she might need to take. Maybe she needs 6 months to ramp up. Those are things that some employers are really great at, and they have a really well thought out path. It's something that I think a lot of small businesses really struggle with. You hire someone and you're frustrated. You're really frustrated because they can't do that job as well as you can. Well, if you want to run a one-person shop for the rest of your life, and there's nothing wrong with that, then don't worry if somebody can't do the job. But are they a force multiplier? Even if they're only half as good as you are, if they can take half of your work off your plate or a quarter of your work off your plate, then it frees you up to do higher end work. And that's something that I think for hiring is an important thing too. They don't have to be as good as you.
Right.
If they can free you up to do more of the work that you're really good at. Like, I kind of doubt that most employers are really good at filing tax returns.
No.
That's something that's pretty obvious to them that they should outsource.
Right.
But most small business people do a lot of their own sales, and they're probably always going to be the best salesperson. So hiring their first salesperson is usually really hard.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and I learned this a while ago, and have corrected from my mistakes with it too, is that when you're hiring somebody, if you don't have kind of your procedures, your what you want written down, you're just going with what's in your head. The problem is that, am I effectively communicating with you what I want done and how I want it done? Because you may learn differently than I do. And if you tell me once, I got it, where you may need to see it to get it, not verbally be told. And that is something that I've learned because of having the turnover, and then realizing it's like, oh, wait a second, maybe I'm not being effective in what I'm doing because I'm just verbally telling. And then, okay, how does that knowledge get passed to the next person? It's, oh, well, no, that's not the way I want it done. I want it this. It's like, oh, well, Cindy told me to do it this way. So I think that's something else that when we're recruiting, that we need to think about.
Yeah. And the word that came to mind when you were talking about that is repetition,
Yeah.
right? You might show me something and I might need only to do it once or twice, and then I got it. It's pretty simple, pretty similar to other things I've done. But you take, the greatest musicians in the world, the greatest athletes in the world, so-called all-stars that
Right.
a lot of employers talk about. I want to have a rock star, an
Right.
all-star, superstar doing this. I defy you to name me one amazing musician, amazing athlete who became amazing on their first attempt, right? Like
Yeah.
Michael Jordan did not pick up a basketball and shoot a three-pointer the very first time that ball was in his hands. He might have shot that ball 1,000 times, 5,000 times until he was able to get that basket.
Well, you got to
And
remember, he got cut from his high school basketball team.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's
So.
right. Yeah. And that wasn't just about like being skinny and being,
No.
I think there was a Netflix documentary where I think he was kind of poking fun at himself, and it was like he needed to work harder.
Yeah.
And I think he said something like his dad was like really hard on him and really finally got it through to him. You have to work hard at this if you're going to master it. And if you're not going to master it, you're not going to play basketball for a living.
Right. All right, Stephen, we've covered a lot of stuff. I could go on
Cool.
here. This great conversation. What have I not asked you wish I had?
I think the one thing, just sort of going back to the very beginning of the conversation, in terms of a question I hear from a lot of business people is, I've got this job opening, where should I advertise it? Okay. I'm a big fan. They're competitors of ours. I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, Indeed, a bunch of the others. I'm a big fan of niche sites. If you're in Baltimore, there's going to be a job board specifically to jobs in Baltimore. If you're an engineer, there's going to be jobs for you specifically in engineering. Don't put all your eggs, as an employer, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Think about the fact that you have different candidates who are going to look for jobs in different ways. So use referrals, talk to your friends and family.
Right.
Maybe call your local schools and ask if they've got a career service office that might be able to help you. Do use the sites like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, etc. Do use some of the niche sites. If you're looking for a student or recent grad, 0 to 5 years of experience, we're a good option for that. If you're hiring at scale, if you're looking for 1 or 2 people, actually, we're not good for that. We're really good at more high volume kinds of roles. But it becomes this all of the above strategy, not just one channel.
Right. Great. Thank you. So if people want to talk to you, they want to learn more about College Recruiter, how can they reach out to you? How can they find you?
Yeah. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. Stephen, Steven Rothberg, Rothberg. There are only 3 of us, last I checked. One's a New Jersey lawyer, another one is in Australia, and then there's me. And so it's easy to figure that one out. Or just email me, Stephen@collegerecruiter.com.
Great. Stephen, I really appreciate your time. Appreciate our talk today. I'm sure our listeners learned a lot from this today.
Awesome. Cheers, Gary.
Thank you. Hey, this week my guest was Stephen Rothberg, and he is the founder of College Recruiter. I'll see you guys next week.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.